Halloween is coming, and perhaps you're thinking of an appropriately themed Dungeons & Dragons game. In this video, I'll cover 6 monsters and a few honorable mentions that you can use to run terrifying adventures. Hi everyone, my name is Nate and you are watching WASD20, a channel about tabletop RPGs and fantasy maps. If you're wanting to create creepy experiences at your table, there are objectively 6 monsters that are the most frightening. Okay, so obviously there's some subjectivity here. Different things creep people out in weird ways. So in reality, of the 30 or 40 D&D monsters that I have had terrifying nightmares about, the monsters in this video have given me the worst nightmares.
Not the GIF. Not the GIF. No.
As with the video from a couple weeks ago on the biggest, baddest bruisers, I'll put a link up at the top, I've given some consideration to having a variety of different types of creatures, as well as varying the challenge rating. So we're going to start actually down at CR0 and work our way all the way up to CR20. So let's get on with the creatures. All right, now many people are really freaked out about rats or spiders or something like that. But me, I get scared of different small creepy things. I'm talking about the severed hands of murderers that have been magically reanimated and want to claw your eyes out. I'm talking about the crawling claw. Now, let's be upfront. These are a CR0. They're weak and easy to defeat. But they're just so gross, and I love the idea of a crawling claw waking up a character at night. You hear a skittering across the floor in the dark. You feel something touch your leg. Someone lights a torch and hands! They're everywhere! So a single crawling claw could absolutely be used to good effect, just to give players a good jump scare or creep them out. It sets a certain tone, even though it doesn't provide much of a challenge in combat. But a whole lot of crawling claws dropping from the ceiling and coming from all angles can be pretty harrowing for a low-level party, and it can be a lot of fun for you DMs to watch out there. I think it'll be a memorable scene. Also, as the Dungeon Master, try to imagine what sort of place your player characters might find a whole lot of hands of murderers that have been magically reanimated so they can go on killing. What demented soul must be keeping all these hands around? The crawling claw is bound to the will of its creator, but it often retains some of the hate, jealousy, and evil intent of its former owner. Very creepy. Honorable mention in this CR category goes to spiders, rats, and zombies. Now before we talk about the next monster, I do want to thank my sponsor for this video, Iron Archer Gamecraft. Iron Archer makes high-quality woodcraft dice trays that are incredibly unique for a couple reasons. First, the trays are lined with cork leather, which is an eco-friendly alternative to leather, and I just love the feel of this stuff, and it comes in a lot of really cool colors. There are several different designs, including this super convenient travel tray, and these things are a great value. I have not seen high-quality dice trays at a lower price. And from now until the end of October, Iron Archer is giving my viewers a 10% discount. All you have to do is use the code WASD20 at checkout. So go check them out. Just go to ironarchergamecraft.com or use the link down in the video description. Thanks, Iron Archer. Next up, at challenge rating 1, the HARPY. Now, the HARPY is not a traditional horror monster that you might imagine for a spooky game. But real talk, harpies freak me out. These creatures are a twisted combination of a bird and a woman, and while there have been some depictions of harpies over the years that have actually given them some beauty, my favorite depictions are much more grotesque, like the 5e Monster Manual art, or the way they're depicted in the Witcher games. As in Greek mythology, 5th edition harpies have a beautiful song that can charm players and lure them into some very dangerous situations, whether that be an ambush, or straight over a cliff, or into some other natural hazard. Players must succeed on a DC 11 wisdom save or be charmed. For the most part, harpies are cowardly, but if they sense easy prey, they will attack. Often they prefer to torture their victims, enjoying the song of their screams. So the harpy might seem like an odd choice at first, but hopefully you can see how terrifying they are. Also, I should confess, I have a weird thing with birds creeping me out. I don't know, it's, I guess, you know, what's scary or creepy is often a matter of players' phobias, as I kind of mentioned earlier. Some players will be mortified by giant spiders or ghosts or sharks in the water. It totally depends on your players. But also be careful not to push it too far if you think your players might be too uncomfortable with the adventure. We're going for scary fun here, not scary I can't concentrate on this game anymore and I need to go curl up in the corner with a blanket over my head. Honorable mention in this category, we've got ghouls, specters, and giant spiders. Next, at challenge rating 5, the Flesh Golem. Now, this could be your classic Frankenstein's monster if you want to run it that way. But the 5e art gives us a more grotesque picture here that I really appreciate. Assorted humanoid body parts stitched and bolted together to form a strong, hulking brute that lurches toward your players persistently, shrugging off most magic attacks and most weapon attacks. From a distance, your players might expect a zombie, but up close they'll find it towers over them and looks far more manufactured, might be the word. You see, a golem is skillfully crafted by a twisted soul of some kind and then animated with a profane ritual with a spirit from the elemental plane of earth. There are other golems too. You've got clay golems and iron golems and stone, but none are as frightening as the flesh golem in my opinion. While it has only very basic intelligence, if its creator is nearby, the flesh golem becomes a lot more dangerous as it can follow its creator's commands. A flesh golem has magical resistance and lightning damage actually heals it. Fire damage is quite effective because it gives the flesh golem disadvantage on attacks on its next turn. Honorable mention for this category, we've got hags. Oh, that's a good one. The banshee, the oblex, werewolves, and ghosts. All right, the next monster on our list is one of D&D's most iconic monsters, the Mind Flayer, or Illithid. At a challenge rating 7, they don't seem so dangerous, but the real power and terror of a Mind Flayer is in its ability and desire to devour the brains of its victims, and it can control creatures telepathically. The 4 tentacles near the mouth aid in its extract brain ability, and they also lead to some of the most horrifying images I've ever seen in D&D art. I cannot imagine a worse fate than this. A Mind Flayer is smart, and if you use them, don't just have them be a simple boss the party fights. Rather, the thralls of Mind Flayers will be used in the fighting, controlled telepathically by the Mind Flayer, and giving it time to perhaps escape so it can, keep on doing awful things. In addition to having other creatures it can use as extensions of its own consciousness, the Mind Flayers often live and work in colonies, so an encounter with several of them becomes a much more terrifying proposition. Historically, many species in D&D lore have their origin story tied up with the corrupting influence of Mind Flayers, and the results have always been twisted and dark. While their former empire has fallen, these creatures now persist in the Underdark, but you can also find them elsewhere. If your story idea requires it, just go for it. Honorable mention in this range goes to the Aboleth, Howler, and Drider. The next creature is quintessential horror, the vampire. While vampires have been done poorly in plenty of places, Dungeons & Dragons has a long history of doing them pretty well, actually. Most notably starting in the 1983 release of the Ravenloft module by Tracy and Laura Hickman, which featured the well-known vampire Strahd. Like Mind Flayers, it will really help if you get to know these creatures rather than just glancing at their stat block and throwing them in an encounter. The thing that makes them so terrifying to me is that air of mystery they bring. Perhaps the players have a chance to meet an individual, a mysterious, well-to-do noble of some kind. The mystery, the suspense, the way others avoid their home and talk about them in hushed voices. The creation of suspense and a feeling of dread are what you should be going for in any vampire-themed adventure. So think about ways you can build that up, and that can be quite challenging in a one-shot, but I think it's doable. The 5th edition vampire is a challenge rating 13 creature, so these are not for the low-level party. But if you can't really see that CR 13 working, you could always try throwing in a vampire spawn instead, which is a CR 5 creature. To maximize the effect of a vampire, also take time to read about a vampire's lair. It's a big part of the flavor of these creatures, and the lair itself should be just as terrifying and mysterious as the creature living there. Lastly, at a challenge rating of 20, I don't imagine too many people will be using this one, but here we go. The Nightwalker. I had no idea what this creature was until I got Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes, and there I found it, and it freaked me out. It looks like some kind of giant, shadowy demon, but basically a Nightwalker is a creature of the negative plane. Whenever a being here in the material plane manages to get into the negative plane without dying, it trades places with a Nightwalker. That Nightwalker is now left in the material plane and will not return unless it is offered enough life for it to devour. If it dies, the individual in the negative plane is just stuck there forever. The Nightwalker is an undead creature that's goal is to devour any life it encounters. It wants to wipe out everything. In terms of abilities, my absolute favorite is the Finger of Doom. The Nightwalker points a finger at any creature within 300 feet, and unless they succeed on a DC 21 Wisdom save, the creature takes 4d12 necrotic damage and becomes frightened and paralyzed. So, it's a dangerous, strange, and terrifying creature, and I don't imagine it's used very often, but the very sight of this thing will have your players shaking, and its abilities and goals are very frightening. Honorable mention in this CR20-ish category goes to the Lich. It was close, Lich, but I wanted to go with a little something different for our final one. Please don't kill me. So those are the monsters, but before we go, I want to recognize that you can make almost any monster terrifying in your RPG if you do it right. A lot of it comes down to how you set things up and the way you run the creature. Even a simple goblin or a zombie can be extremely frightening if you do it right. But that's a topic for another video, and I'm thinking it actually might even be next week's video, like how to scare your players or something like that, and we can talk about, how to set the right mood and ambiance and build suspense. Anyway, make sure you're subscribed so you can see that and others. I'm also working on one right now for the downright strangest creatures in D&D 5e, like just the most bizarre and off-the-wall monsters. Before we go, I also want to thank my patrons for their support of my work here. Patrons are people who support this channel on a monthly basis. I could not do this without them, and if you enjoy my content and you feel like you want to support, you can check it out too. There's some pretty cool rewards, including weekly live map drawing streams with yours truly, so head over to patreon.com/WASD20. I also want to thank Iron Archer Gamecraft once again. Go check out their amazing dice trays, and yeah, I think that's all, everybody. Happy Halloween, happy haunting your players, and everybody take care. You'll see me again very soon.